Welcome to the New York Business Leaders Podcast, presented by the Coyle Group. We interview the most interesting and influential business leaders in New York and hear their stories of success, challenges, and lessons learned while building their businesses and personal brands. New episodes drop weekly, so please be sure to subscribe to get updates in your favorite stream. Without further delay, here's your host of the New York Business Leaders Podcast, Gordon Coyle.
Welcome back to the New York Business Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Gordon Coyle. In today's episode, I welcome Aakash Shah, one of the co-founders of Wyndly Health, located here in New York, to talk about allergies. And I've got to be honest, this is a fantastic conversation. If you know anyone that suffers from airborne allergies like pet dander, hay fever, pollen, which is just starting up in our area, you're going to want to listen to this and share this episode. Aakash and his co-founder, Dr. Manan Shah, set out on a mission to fix healthcare by treating patients like people. Wyndly, which is spelled W-Y-N-D-L-Y, is a modern medical practice that specializes in helping allergy sufferers achieve allergy-free lives. Their team of doctors work with patients to develop a personalized treatment plan offering a long-term allergy relief through clinically proven treatments, all from the comfort and convenience of your home. I had only thought you could treat symptoms of allergies and didn't know you could actually get to a state of permanent relief. So that's why I find this really interesting. I'll have all the links to their social pages in the show notes, and you can go to wyndly.com to take a look at how they do this, as well as their pricing, which is very transparent. Again, it's wyndly.com. Now, if you're interested in telling your story on this show, I'd love to have you. Why not reach out and let's chat? I'll have my contact info in the show notes as well. And like I said, I'd love to speak to you about it. Thanks. Now, on to the show. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Gordon Coyle. Today, I've got Aakash Shah from Wyndly, who operates a pretty interesting business, with us to talk about Wyndly and what he's doing in the area of allergies. So, Aakash, why don't you take it away, spend a few minutes, introduce yourself, tell us about your company and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm Aakash. I'm the founder and CEO of Wyndly, and what we do is we fix your allergies permanently. And we do this by training your body to stop reacting to its allergy triggers. So this treatment is known as immunotherapy. It's something you could get if you went into an allergist's office, but we found out there wasn't really someone that was making it easy or accessible or convenient. Look, it's 2023. Everyone's used to stuff showing up at their front doorstep. We thought, how can we take this care out of a specialist's office and bring it to everyone into their homes? My co-founder is an allergy specialist, and he was already doing this sort of care in his office. So I teamed up with him to bring this treatment to everyone across the states.
Great. I've got so many questions.
Yeah, man, wherever you want to start.
So I love the introductory of what you said. Permanently stop reacting. I wish you could apply that to more than just allergies in life, right? But tell us how that works on a fifth grade level. We don't need to get into deep science here, but tell us, like, what are you really doing?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about like the biological mechanisms over here. I'm going to keep
Thank you.
I'm going to make it accessible. And this, explaining this accessibly is actually very core to what we want to do. I'm sure we'll get into that. So effectively, the way immunotherapy works is it is a desensitization therapy. We're desensitizing your immune system to what it is exposed to. What happens is when you sign up with us, we send you medicine, which is effectively little bits of what you're exposed to in very known dosages. You expose your body to them. For us, it's something you take in your mouth, and you just literally hold it underneath your tongue for a few minutes. And that known dosage, along with a regular exposure, because we do it every day, so that's a regular exposure, that effectively trains your immune system to, instead of being overreactive like it might be when it's exposed to pollen in the air around you, to have a more managed reaction. specifically with more managed, instead of having the common allergy symptoms of a runny nose, of sneezing, of itchy eyes. Your body is able to handle the what it sees as an intruder uh, without an overactive response. So I like to say it's a lot like training for a marathon, right? Your body right now, it tries to, maybe not your body, but your immune system effectively, when it goes out and it's hit with cat dander or pollen or whatever the case might be, it's as if we had just thrown you into running a marathon without any training. So we're starting your immune system from day one, and we're kind of saying, okay, today you're just going to take one step. Next week, you're going to take 10 steps. And we're slowly building it up. And after about 6 weeks, you realize that, wait, I'm having a lot less allergy symptoms. At about 6 months, you forget you have allergies. And after that, we're just trying to lock in that change, because if you quit too early, you kind of revert to being very allergic.
And what kind of allergies does this therapy work on?
Yeah, so we've seen immunotherapy in clinic work for food allergies, for stuff you breathe in. Um, it's a proven practice, right? This is not new science. Because we are doing this at home, because we're sending this medicine directly to you, right now we're only focused on the stuff that you breathe in. So that's cat dander, that's cat, dog, any pets effectively, pollens, and then a lot of dust is stuff that we see. In the future, we do expect to expand into peanut allergies and maybe farther into the future, seafood allergies. But right now, we are solely focused on stuff you breathe in.
The peanut was going to be the next question, because that seems to be the most prevalent heavy duty allergy that a lot of kids have, that when I was a kid didn't exist. So I was curious about that.
Absolutely. So there actually is a treatment. It's known as Palforzia. It's immunotherapy for peanut allergies. Uh, we've just seen that it's not something that would really fit our at-home care model, right? We want to make this as easy as possible. And currently, the research shows that it should be under the direct supervision of a medical provider at all times. So that means you have to go into the office. But it is something that has been FDA approved.
Interesting.
That's Palforzia, that is.
And on your website, I'm looking at right now, very interesting, Wyndly.com, which is WYNDLY.com. Under the how it works, identify your allergy triggers. So you have a sort of like a test kit. Is that right? How does that work?
Absolutely. So I think what's really important to understand is we aren't doing anything that you wouldn't get in a physical office. We've just made it a lot more accessible. You just said it's as easy as going to our website. Traditionally, if you wanted to go see an allergy specialist, for my healthcare plan, for the health plan I used to have, it was literally I had to go see a general practitioner or my like primary care provider. And then I had to spend 6 weeks going back and forth with them. And then if I was lucky, I could get an approval to go see a specialist through my insurance system. And it's just a headache, right? And, at a certain point, the friction was too much. I'll put this off, because I actually personally had very debilitating allergies. For about like 4 to 6 weeks in the spring, I was absolutely worthless. And also, I discovered I was allergic to cats when my parents got a cat during the pandemic. And I was no longer able to be in my childhood home. So, I was like, how do I fix this? And the process was just effectively impossible. And I was talking to my co-founder, and he's like, you know what, we have this at-home diagnostic that I've used before, because I use it with children. He was saying he uses it with children who don't necessarily want to do a traditional allergy test. And I was like, well, why can't I take that? So we kind of just slowly figured it out that way. How does he treat me from where he is? And then for me in New York. Specifically, to go back to your original question, sorry, I meandered a little bit.
That's okay. That was good.
For your original question on how does the process actually work? We are literally giving you little bits of what you're allergic to. And there are, we test for 40 specific allergens, but there's actually thousands of allergy triggers out there. The 40 that we test for are kind of the ones that we can look at them and we can say, okay, if they're triggered by, birch pollen, there's probably a class of allergens altogether that we can kind of handle here. But if you talk to most people, they don't know exactly what they're allergic to. They can't list off, oh, it's birch and ragweed and spruce or whatever else it may be. So we need to know exactly what you're allergic to. And we do that through a very simple at-home diagnostic that requires one small finger prick. And then we're able to test this through our certified laboratory. And this is something, again, that's been clinically validated. It's something we were doing in our physical practice. It's something that you can get in offices around the US. Once we have that, we set you up. I don't know if you've ever gotten lab work done from most folks, but you kind of get gobbledygook. It's just like a bunch of numbers. It doesn't mean anything. And what we realized is that's not the experience we wanted to give people. We wanted to tell people, look, you took a chance on us. You found us on the internet. We want to give you something that you can feel like you actually learned something. So we take those lab results and we build a custom visualization on top of it. So each person gets a 20-page personalized visualization, which says, look, these are your specific allergens. This is how you can manage them. And then these are your actual lab results. And then we take that visualization, we take that report. You get to sit down with a doctor and really go through your specific to craft a specific treatment plan for yourself. And then we specialize in immunotherapy because, look, if you want to just do antihistamines, you don't need to work with a specialist for that. You can generally get that over the counter or through a general practitioner. So we found that the people who come to us and who are willing to kind of go through our process are looking for lifelong relief.
So describe the difference between taking an antihistamine for hay fever, allergies, watery eyes, and all those symptoms versus immunotherapy. You kind of mentioned that you give small doses of the irritant or allergen. How does that work versus an antihistamine?
Absolutely. So the way an antihistamine works is it kind of just covers up the problem, right? So let's say you had a broken bone and then you took a painkiller. You're not in pain anymore. You're not experiencing the symptoms, but the root cause is still there. And that's kind of what we see with antihistamines. And most people only know about antihistamines because that's what they're told in we're literally advertised to by these gigantic pharma companies like, hey, you're sneezy, take Claritin. You're sneezy, take a Flonase. And so that's kind of what's on people's minds most often. But all these antihistamines really do is they cover up the symptoms. They don't treat the root cause. And there's a ton of like secondary side effects associated with antihistamines, right? They can cause drowsiness. We've found in some people it can cause weight gain. People just don't want to take a drug every day. And if you don't treat the root cause, then you might have to take antihistamines for the rest of your life. We also see that, a lot of folks, they take antihistamines. And if you have very chronic allergies, you're effectively saying that you can't operate for a few days out of the year. It's not even a few days, like months out of the year. And antihistamines kind of take you from, maybe if you're usually operating at 100% and then allergies take you down to 10%, antihistamines will bring you to 50%, but you're still kind of like just pushing through.
Because of that drowsy feeling that they give you.
Yeah, like that's not actually helpful.
Right. Not a great way to live.
This is something that you could just live without. So just like, I get inflamed because like, oh man, I spent 30 years of my life thinking there's nothing I could do for my allergies. And then I realized there was something I could do to really get lifelong relief.
And as you're talking about it, I'm kind of thinking about people around me. We were in Florida with our extended family, and my daughter-in-law was kind of complaining about, she was sneezing and her eyes were watering, and she just dropped me off at Walgreens. I'll go in and pick up, like you said, Claritin or something. And now that you're talking about it, I'm thinking to myself, that's the way everybody has kind of fixed this situation, unless they've got some really serious, like my daughter has a shellfish allergy. That's pretty serious. And she carries an EpiPen. But for most Americans or most people, they kind of treat this symptomatically, like, I feel bad, I'm going to take a medicine for it. Maybe they've never heard that there is a therapy for it because it's never risen to the point of being like life-threatening or something like that.
No, I think that's exactly it, right? Like we knew that there was a subset of people where allergies were life-threatening. And for everyone else, we were just like, antihistamines are good enough. But what I'm trying to do with Wyndly and what my co-founder and I are trying to do is provide this third option that's for those people who the antihistamines aren't enough. And there's literally millions and millions of them, but who it's not so life-threatening that they want to go through the trouble of going into a doctor's office. Traditional immunotherapy in a doctor's office, you have to go in every week. And it's almost a 1 hour appointment when you count in, oh, you have to travel there, you sit in a doctor's office waiting for the doctor to see you, and then you leave. Like, it's hard to ask people to commit to a doctor's visit every week, a 1 hour visit for like years on end.
Yeah. Never mind years on end, even for 3 or 4 months, no one would do it.
Exactly. So
there's a fairly low tolerance there.
What we've really found out is I think it's almost like the popularity of LASIK, right? It used to be, look, your eyes were good or you wore glasses. And then we found out actually, no, LASIK came out and it provides another. Contacts came out first, and it was like, okay, so now you have contacts and glasses depending on how bad your vision is and depending on what you want to do. And now we have LASIK that's come out, and there are plenty of people who don't have like incredibly bad eyesight that are getting LASIK just because it's an increased convenience. They want to just invest in their health generally. So I think that's one parallel. I also see this parallel to the teeth aligners that we've seen, right? It used to be very difficult to get braces. Then we kind of saw braces become cheaper over time. And now we've seen that actually, you know what? Some people do need a full mouth of metal and they do need to go see an orthodontist super regularly. But there's another way that's kind of an in between, which is these teeth aligners, Invisalign, which you can get mailed to you. I mean, Smile Direct Club is incredible. They'll literally mail you a mold kit. You literally just bite into this goo that they send you.
Right.
And then they give you something that's literally going to straighten your teeth. And it's stunning because there's a lot of people that want to do that. But the cost, like when you make something convenient, you increase the market size is really what it is, because your people, time is something that people also spend. And that's kind of what we're going for here. We're trying to make something convenient and we're just trying to get the word out.
Yeah. So if somebody had allergies and they went to the allergist office every week, what would the treatment at the office be? Would it be in
the office, unfortunately, what we see is the healthcare system hasn't really enabled the more convenient treatment to come through. So I talked about our under the tongue treatment called sublingual immunotherapy. I know you said not to get too technical.
That's okay.
Deal with me here. So that's like allergy drops effectively, right? It's something you can take underneath your tongue. You just hold it there for a few minutes and you're good to go. When you're in the office, you're not going to visit the office every day. So now they have to give you something that's a little more aggressive and a little more forceful. So they give you a shot in the arm and it literally has allergens. But because it's so aggressive, there's a high risk of a reaction. So I don't know if for many people that had to get the COVID vaccine, there had to be an observation period in case there was like something that happened. So then you have to sit under observation and just hope, I hope my doctor didn't mess anything up. And I hope my body isn't like a little vulnerable today so that I might have to go to the hospital. And so you have to do that every single week. That's why it takes an hour, right? Because you're just sitting there under observation. And so that would be the immunotherapy. We haven't even talked about the testing. The way the testing would work is they do what's known as a prick test. And they literally take little bits of what you're like the allergen. So that's literally what the allergy trigger is. And they put it underneath your skin to not force a reaction, but to see if there is a reaction. And it's miserable, man. It is literally torturous. If people can Google images, but it's not a good time. Imagine it's almost like the closest parallel I can think of is like, imagine if you just like let mosquitoes eat on you for a day and then just like had to deal with that. Because you're like, well, I want to see if I'm allergic to mosquitoes. Well, really, since you're in the office, you're probably allergic to something, So it is a very, very negative experience. And what we really saw, the reason my co-founder even had explored like an alternative option in his physical practice was because he was seeing many children, and children, you don't want to inject children you don't want to cause undue pain to children.
Right.
They don't understand
Right.
that, like, oh, it's for
Right.
a better long-term outcome. They're just like, please don't hurt me. Which I think is totally fair. And we had found out that, this other test we were doing, which was this one single prick test, sometimes it had a few more complications when we were doing it through insurance. So it was kind of more of a headache, but it was so much easier for the children that that's kind of what we ended up going with for them. Mm-hmm. And so just like, yeah, the incentives of the healthcare system really, the incentives and just like how everything is set up when you're going in office, make it so you have to get shots versus this at-home therapy. And I heard in the like 80s, they used to send you home with your shots. I don't know anyone that's sending people home with vials to inject in themselves nowadays.
I like a little DIY in my life, but I'm not giving myself shots. I mean, diabetics have to do it a couple times a day if their insulin is a little crazy, but that's a different story. So you've got traditional means of going to the doctor's office once a week to get a shot. And how many weeks would you have to do that to
5
cure
years
yourself? Sorry?
5 years. The standard treatment is expected to be 5 years.
Okay. So
like,
you're really setting this up to be.
For most people, if they went to the same doctor for 5 years, that would be one of their longest relationships.
That's right. That's right.
I have never had the same doctor for 5 years because what ends up happening is I guess my pediatrician, but then I've just been moving so often, right? Like I went off to college from my hometown. Then you're only in college for about 4 years. And then I was in California for my first job, and I was there for a few years. I haven't lived in one place for 5 years at all. So what we see is, our patients are folks who, one, they just they travel a lot, whether for work or for pleasure. We have one patient who has grandchildren, and she's like, I like spending summers with my grandchildren. And if I do that, I wouldn't be able to fix my allergies. But you're letting me do that. And I was like, well, can't argue with that. That's great. Yeah. That's a great so we get a lot of that. We get a lot of like consultants, folks who have to travel for work. And then we also just get a lot of moms with young children who don't want to cart their children around because just one more thing. But they do want to make sure that their children grow up without allergies and without, right? Because this is, once you find out that this is something you can fix, you're going to fix it. Right. So that's kind of, that's like a profile of who we see. It's a lot of folks who understand that this is right. Because there's 80 million people who have chronic allergies. That's like what, 1 in 4 people. So a lot of people understand that this is something that's very frustrating and they want to deal with, but they just haven't gone through the trouble of doing it yet. And we're really making it very simple.
Yeah, well, just to tee it up a little bit again. So you're talking about going to the doctor's office once a week for an hour to get a shot in the arm. Really, that's just
isn't that something you just really want to do?
Just would love to do that 52 weeks a year, or order a home test and then get what I'm assuming is a vial of this therapy that you put under your tongue every day, and in 6 to 9 or 12 months you're cured of your allergy. Is that it in a nutshell?
Yeah, in 6 weeks, actually, you start seeing significant results. And then at 6 months, you're going to feel like, whoa, I have really good allergy relief. And that is what you get, but that's not what you get with Wyndly, right? We're not selling you a drug. We are a allergy practice. We're not a pharmacy. Okay. So with us, you're getting a doctor in your pocket, right? So we do a lot of things to make sure that our patients understand that we're part of this care with them. What we've realized is, there's a lot of knowledge that's kind of locked behind talking to a doctor, which can be fair. But it's very difficult to actually get in front of a doctor for many people. And so again, this goes back towards like me saying that we want to remove the barriers. You can text us anytime and we'll answer within a day, and we'll say, you know what, if this isn't working out for you, then let's forget about it. Let's try something else. Or, oh, you ran into some poison ivy because you went camping. Okay, let's get you some other prescription. I can write you a prescription because I'm your doctor, right? I'm not just a pharmacy. We're actually a doctor that's working with you. oh, you need a referral in such and such state. That's not really what we do, but it's important for us that you get the care you deserve. So we're going to go out of our way to try and make that happen for you. And so that's kind of, for us, it's about building a better healthcare system, starting with this little corner of allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, we have to actually live this ideal of like, well, what makes healthcare frustrating? When my doctor doesn't talk to me. Okay, so we're going to talk to you. What makes healthcare frustrating? When I don't know what's happening. Well, we're going to over communicate, right? So we send a lot of shipping notifications. We're like, hey, your medicine is going to change. This is how much it might cost.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to tell you proactively about it. And we're going to tell you exactly what's happening to your body throughout this time. So you should never feel like when you're working with us that you don't know what's happening. Because what we've realized from a both very personal perspective for myself, but also just by listening to our patients, is like the reason healthcare can be so frustrating is because it's a very vulnerable time in people's lives. And you're feeling vulnerable, and then the system itself kind of stonewalls you regularly. So you're like in a vulnerable place, and then you're kind of kicked when you're down. And that's really what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, and as health practices become larger and larger and larger, the personalization of the delivery of healthcare, in my opinion, just lessens and lessens and lessens. It's kind of like, where is this going to end? Where it's going right now does not look good to me, because I'm experiencing it myself, trying to get an appointment with a doctor, and she doesn't have any availability until the end of May. And I'm like,
this is exactly what I mean.
Exactly.
So then as an individual, we choose like, well, I guess I'm just going to live with this.
Right. I'm going to have to just not feel well for the next 6 weeks and hope for the best.
That's a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And then you form an opinion in your mind, like, okay, my relationship with this physician, it happens to be an eye doctor, I guess it's not that valuable to them. Because, if it was a valued relationship, they would do whatever they could to help me out. Maybe they'd say, and this is the backup doctor, or we'll squeeze you in after hours, or can you come in earlier, or whatever. But I just left. This is actually a phone call I had yesterday, and I was like so frustrated because I felt like they really just don't care.
I know.
And maybe that's not the doctor, but I think
that's the worst part. It's not the doctor, man. No, do you know how much crap a lot of doctors put themselves through? My little sister is she's starting clinicals at Georgetown Med, and that is not easy.
No.
They are putting in the time, and then she's going to have residency, and they spend a lot of time, and you don't do something like that. Like, you don't stay committed to the process of getting that MD unless you very deeply care about helping people.
Right.
But what ends up happening, and this is why I never blame individual physicians, because it's not the individual providers. It really is just the system that has grown up over the last 50, 60 years of insurance and how people pay and employer benefits and all of that. And it's so convoluted and complicated that for us, we do want to, the end goal here is not just to take care of allergies, but it's to take care of any chronic symptom, anything that has to do with you feeling bad, right? Like, what can we do to help that? But we're starting here because it's kind of where we can get a foothold and kind of grow it. And as long as I think the ethos is make it better, 1,000 times better, hopefully that we're going to be able to push that change through.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to pick your battles,
Yeah, and I think it's wise to start in an area where you can have impact, and just kind of stacking the deck against going to the allergist office every week for a shot. Like, when you put that into perspective, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'd rather just suffer because of the time. The time suck, the commitment, the shot itself. I mean, I'm not allergic to needles or anything, but the last thing I want is to get a shot every freaking week.
I don't know. 20% of Americans have a phobia of needles. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you differentiated that you're not a subscription service, a pharmacy. You're a medical provider providing a solution to a problem that just is not, it's a round peg with a square hole sort of problem in America. But can we talk about how the subscription model works and what this costs and that kind of stuff? Because I think this is pretty interesting as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, we're sending you the medicine, and that's that's the majority of the cost. But part of facilitating, and it's not our medicine, we have a pharmacy we work with. Again, if you think of our ethos as like, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. We want to be your one-stop shop. It's not like, oh, I talked to Wyndly and then I have to go find another pharmacy to fulfill this. And then, oh, there was some hiccup with the pharmacy. We want to be responsible for your care. So we assume a lot of that responsibility is really what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no excuses if we're trying to make it so, like, if someone messes up, it's because we messed up, and who you can go to, and who is responsible, because again, what to expect and who to expect it from, and so you don't have that confusion. So we've kind of made ourselves responsible for everything. We offer 2 treatment models. So one, you can sign up for an annual plan and get 1 year's worth of medicine prepaid, or you can do it quarterly. The annual plan comes out to $99 a month, and the quarterly plan comes out to $110 a month. And that's just because, again, it goes back to the pharmacy. If we're able to know what people want, we're able to kind of predict volume and that type of stuff. We do find out that most people opt for our annual plan because they understand, after sitting down with the doctor, that, hey, this is going to take at least like about 6 months for us to really evaluate if it's successful. And we also we're actually rolling out a 90-day guarantee later this month, just to say, hey, just try us out. If you sit down with your doctor, if you do your check-ins, if you do everything right and it still doesn't work for you, you can have your money back. And the reason we're doing that is because we're so confident in what we do. We're so confident in this treatment because, again, this is not new science, right? This is exactly the same stuff that you'd get in a doctor's office. Mm-hmm. And I just want to, look, no medicine works for 100% of people. That's, people are very unique. There's nothing we can do about that. Right. I think that's something that should be celebrated. But no medicine works for 100% of people. But the statistics show that this works for the vast majority of them. And then it was just like, well, if it works for most people, I want to get it into the hands of as many people as possible. Now, if we fall over and we topple because of demand, I'll say that's a good problem for us to have.
Yeah. I think that the 90-day guarantee idea is a great one, because then it removes the barrier of hesitancy for many people that may say, oh, I'm not sure it's going to work. I don't know if it's worth it. And then it gives them kind of like, it's worth a shot.
Well, it's worth a drop. Haha. No. All right, sorry.
That'd be
immunotherapy jokes. Yes. No, absolutely. Well, the number one thing we hear is, dude, 80 million people have chronic allergies. Our pricing right now, so we're all cash pay right now, because when we evaluated what works for us to get started as quickly as possible and what causes the most frustration in healthcare, to nobody's surprise, it was insurance. And did you know that insurance not only frustrates the patients, it also frustrates the providers? But everyone gets a runaround from insurance companies. It's not great. We realized that if we really wanted to get started, if we wanted to get this into the hands of as many people as quickly as possible, we had to go cash pay first. So right now it's all out of pocket. We are launching allergy testing through insurance later this month also. And then we're slowly going to be incorporating insurance into our product for our treatment too.
Okay.
But again, all this comes down to how much complexity do we want to add? We actually looked into doing this when we first launched, and it was like insurance companies weren't telling us how much they would charge the patients. So that would mean patients would get surprise bills. Well, that's not a very positive experience now, is it? So
right.
I mean, I sound like a broken record, but it goes back to like providing that positive experience, because the current experience is not that great.
Right. And outside of the insurance mechanism, it's a cash pay product, but I'm assuming that if you could use a health savings account or a flex pay account, something like that, that it would be covered under that, correct?
Yes, it's covered under HSAs and FSAs.
Okay,
And we see like some employers are also just including us in their health benefits, but a lot of times that's a conversation that has to happen between the individual and the employer.
right,
And it's just like an ask, the same way a gym might get covered as a health
Right.
benefit.
right. Got it. Well, I mean, interesting idea. How long did it take to get this idea from like you and the co-founders' minds of like, do you think we could do this, to actually getting it on the market? How long did that take?
I'm glad you asked, because that's one of my favorite questions. I just love like the inception story, right? Because that's like when you're really feet on the ground, you're just hustling, and when it's just you and your co-founder, it's just like you two against the world. So my co-founder was doing allergy immunotherapy in his office. During 2020, he had to switch. He wanted to stop bringing people into his office, as because of what was happening, and he switched from the shots to the drops. And we realized, well, the drops are working. Then we already felt confident with the diagnostic. Then we explored kind of what can we do on the kind of like sending it across state lines, and we kind of figured that out. And once we knew that the treatment was good, it was about finding people in the real world that wanted to do this. Because when you're starting a company, you have a product hypothesis, but you also have a market hypothesis. You kind of have to bring those together, because if you have a product without a market, you have nothing. And if you have a market without a product, it's better to have a market without a product, because you can probably find a product.
Right.
And so we literally found the one place in the world where people just yell their health information anonymously for everyone to see: Reddit. And you think I'm joking, man, but there are literally thousands of people posting every month on Reddit saying, hey, I have really bad allergies. I tried to see an allergist, or I couldn't get in to see an allergist, or, it's just not something I can do right now. Would someone please help me? And that's where we actually just kind of my co-founder actually just started directly talking to people and saying, hey, I'm an allergy specialist. How can I help you? If you want to grab a time on my calendar, this is how we can do it. And we kind of just listened to what people were asking for, and just kind of leaned into what they were telling us. And as what was a really interesting unlock for us, well, insight, not even an unlock, was like, if one person is asking the question, there's probably 100 to 1,000 people who have the same question but aren't posting on Reddit about it.
Right.
And so as we've been putting more and more of this allergy visit information online, like this is exactly what you would hear in an allergy visit. First, we only started putting it on our website, and then I was like, look, let's try video, because my co-founder was saying, hey man, I'm a doctor. I'm really good like talking to you, but I'm not going to write all this out over and over. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. So I asked him to just record himself on a video. And we started putting up these videos, and one of them got like 700 views, which I know doesn't sound impressive, but when you're expecting 3 and you get 700, you're very excited. And so we just kept doing that. And after eventually the algorithms, I think, like figured out that, oh, we're real doctors and people really like the allergy information. And we had over 1 million views last year. We've already had more than 1 million views this year.
Wow.
And we only started in January 2021. So that's when we started with the concept. And then we only started like really posting online last year. And so, yeah, it's just been, you asked how did we get started? It took about 3 months to kind of validate like the market. Then once we had that market validated, we did some initial launching, but we realized that like, okay, there needs to be a little more structure if we're trying to do a national allergy practice. It took us about a year to get that structure in place. In 2022 is when we started actually talking to more patients. That's why we were starting to post on the internet. And then 2023 has just been wild. One of our videos went viral and got 500,000 views, which again, I know might not sound impressive to some people, but for a doctor in a kind of that's speaking to a very focused audience, that's those are 500,000 people that we definitely helped.
Hey, I'm on YouTube and we produce a lot of content here, and I'm amazed when I get 5,000 views. I'm ecstatic. So 500,000 views, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think, it's about talking to the right person at the right time. And that's what, I was talking to my co-founder the other day, and he was saying, I'm a doctor. And over the course of my practice, I probably see 5,000 patients a year when he was in a traditional practice. You do that like over the course of a 40-year career, 5,000 times 40, that's like 200,000. And he said to me, he was like, Aakash, that one video, I talked to twice as many patients as I would have over the course of my career.
It's a wild perspective.
That one $500,000 video. And I was like, yeah, but it's a little different. He's like, it doesn't matter if it's different. If my goal is to put this information in front of people that need it, then I've been wildly successful with Wyndly. And it just goes back to removing, for us, it's all about making healthcare easier. And part of that, funnily enough, starts with just talking about it.
That's a great origin story.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Love it. Love it. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Did we not cover anything that you wanted to talk about today?
I think what it really is, look, if you have bad allergies, but you haven't seen a doctor yet, or you have seen a doctor and you never took immunotherapy, reach out to me. It's aakash@wyndly.com, or you can, just ping us on Instagram at Wyndly Health. I do still run our customer support. I see every ticket that comes through. I just love hearing from people and hearing their personal stories, because every story in healthcare is deeply personal. And I'm always learning on, this is something that we could do better. So even if, you're not looking for treatment right now, if you have something to share, I want to hear from you. And then if you think that we should be, if you're a health industry exec and you think that we should be in your insurance plan, we're happy to make that happen too. But that's shooting for the moon,
Got it. Everybody needs a moonshot. So
throw one in there,
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'll put Wyndly Health on Instagram and your email address in the show notes if anybody wants to reach out and talk more about this. And the name of the company is Wyndly, WYNDLY.
Yeah, I have a media kit that I'm going to send you. Like I put this together. I was like, what would I want if I was a podcaster? And I was like, these like headshots, logos, their socials, like a whole bunch of stuff, right? And I was like, well, I can give this to Gordon, and I can spend a few minutes of my life making his life easier.
I appreciate that.
So I'm gonna, but like, it's just how we do things, man. Because it's not fair to you for me to make your life hard. You like blessed me with your time. Like I feel so lucky.
Well, I feel lucky too, because this
after I log off, I'll send you this media kit.
Great. Truly, I think this has been interesting because I never knew it existed in any way, shape, or form, that immunotherapy could get people relief that have allergies, which can be so naggingly annoying for such a long period of somebody's life. So very interesting conversation. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it and bring it to the audience. If anybody has any other questions or issues, reach out to Aakash and have a conversation. I'm sure he'd be happy to have that. And, in parting, if anybody else has an interesting story like this that they'd like to tell on this podcast, you can reach out to me. My contact info will be in the show notes as well. So until next time, everybody be well, and thanks for being here.
Thanks again, man.
You're welcome.
That's it for this week's episode of the New York Business Leaders Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. In the meantime, find more interviews and resources at nybusinessleaders.com.